there's a saying, I forget what it exactly is, but you don't want to spurn a woman, okay? If a woman, like, is attracted to you and you turn her down, there's a folk saying, like, a woman spurned, watch out, okay? So that's the basic principle of the novel, The Big Sleep. That the woman behind the mystery presented in that book, and the mystery is so convoluted, let's say, that I had this film professor at the University of Maryland. I liked him a lot. And he was talking about one or another movie. I think it was a Raymond Chandler, that's the name of the writer, movie. I'm not sure if it was The Big Sleep, but anyway, he was saying in front of the class, he was showing like part of the movie, and he was saying, look at the smoke-filled room and the texture that's going on about this. He says, this kind of stuff is not in the screenplay, you see, and it's all there by the filmmakers there. It was not in the screenplay. But anyway, I always did my homework. If that teacher asked us to read the screenplay, I did read it, and so I had it with me. And I raised my hand in class, but something I rarely did, because I was pretty much a quiet student in college and in graduate school. But I said, no, all that stuff you're talking about, the smoke-filled air and the texture and all this, it's all in the screenplay. And so he's like, so I started reading. He's like, he gives me this baffled look. And so I start reading from the screenplay, and it's all in there, okay? What he was saying wasn't there, was there. So one of his prize students who did a lot of talking in class, he tried to say something like, well, blah, 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 and the professor, he says to him, he said, he said, what are you talking about? You make me stand up here and make an ass out of myself. He's right. It's in the screenplay. So I'm just saying that because this professor also said about Raymond Chandler, which is something I really liked that he said. He said, when they were making this movie, he said the novel that Chandler wrote was so complex that at one point in the movie, he said they came up with an extra body that had been murdered. And they said, "What? How did this get here?" He was trying to be funny, I think, I said, we don't know. So anyway, I do have a copy of The Big Sleep still. It is a very complex novel in its way, but outstanding, Here's my copy. It's got like a 1940s cover. The back cover's missing. It hasn't survived, but this book did mysteriously survive me throwing all my precious books into the Colorado Springs dump when I decided that this is what America wants us to do. America has taught us, if you have something precious, destroy it. So if it's a person or a thing and it's precious to you, destroy it. That's what they teach you to do in America. They taught us to destroy things that are valuable, like me in my life, right? I was precious and I was destroyed. So I said, hey, that's what America wants me to do, so I took all my precious books and threw them in the dump. Along with all my journals that I'd kept for years and years and years, according to dream journals I kept in detail, all went into the dump. Either the Montgomery County dump or the Colorado Springs dump. Now, I'm just thinking about these things as I'm finishing up my dinner here. That's all. And in solitary confinement here under a kind of de facto house arrest in the United States of America. There's a message coming up on my phone. Turn on battery saver, right? Okay, so I've never done that. I'm rebelling. So anyway, there's a couple favorite places in this novel. One is, well, I was mentioning that the mystery here, the guilty person behind the mystery presented in this novel is a woman who's been spurned. And the way that the detective Marlowe figures everything out is he spurns this woman and she tries to kill him. So he figures out she's behind the mystery he's been trying to figure out the entire novel. And I believe her name was Carmen Sternwood. I'm having stage fright, but he's saying toward the end of this book when he's explaining how he's finally, everything's come together for him. He's saying, you don't spurn Carmen Sternwood. You don't do that. Okay, so a woman spurned there's a saying. And that's the whole principle behind this novel that Raymond Chandler wrote. Now, when he does spurn this woman, Carmen Sternwood, who gets into his bed naked, you know, he comes back to his apartment one night and he finds her in his bed naked. So what does he do? He throws clothes on her and takes her out of there and sets her on her way. And then when he gets back to his apartment, what does he say? He says, he looks down at his bed that she was in and he says, he tore the bed to pieces savagely. That's how upset he was what this woman was doing. Okay, so there's another favorite place of mine in the novel. I don't think I can find it. Let me put this on pause and see if I can, if it takes me a minute or two. I realize I could look it up online in a second, but I tend not to do that. I don't like the idea. So if I can't find this on my own in like a minute or two, I'll give up. I'm not going to look it up online. So hold on a second. Let me see if I can find that other favorite place. I'm getting a message. My battery's running out, which is going to interrupt me. Is it really? Because the harassers can control the charge on my phones. They can increase and decrease the charge on my phone. So what are they doing? They're often, when I'm getting to a point like this, they're going to say, your battery's almost out. They're going to interrupt me when I'm trying to do something like this. You see, this is a pattern, a strategic microcosmic harassment campaign. Okay? So I found both quotes are in the same chapter. Okay, the quote that I was saying where he's all upset at the end of the chapter where he's taking this girl out of his bed. He's not going to have sex with her. He says, I put my empty glass down and tore the bed to pieces savagely. The other quote is in the same chapter. Okay, he's got a running chess game in his apartment. The guy lives alone. And here's what he says. I look down at the chessboard. I'm afraid now if I read too much, I'm going to get called with copyright violation. So, I looked down at the chessboard. The move with the knight was wrong. He had moved his knight previously, he says. I put it back where I had moved it from. Knights had no meaning in this game. It wasn't a game for knights. Is that you, Chris? And we want justice.